This program is educational support and does not replace your clinician's advice. If your nails change suddenly with dark streaks, severe pain, swelling, bleeding, or you feel acutely unwell, please seek medical care promptly. Good morning and welcome. I'm glad you're here. At EverWell USA, our purpose is steady and simple: to help older adults protect health and dignity with calm, practical guidance you can use today, right where you live. If this kind of clear, encouraging care helps you, please like, subscribe, and share so these messages reach someone you love. You are not alone in the questions you carry. We walk beside you, one small, doable step at a time. It's early now, and the house is quiet. The kettle sighs on the stove, a silver ribbon of steam rising. Sunlight lays a soft stripe across the kitchen table, turning a simple glass of water into something bright. You wrap your hands around a warm cup, notice a nail snag on the porcelain rim, and feel that familiar thought. Why are my nails so brittle these days? What is my body trying to tell me? Stay with that thought. Let's turn it into understanding, not worry. If I told you that fragile, splitting nails after 60 are rarely about vanity and much more often about biology, about moisture and protein in the nail plate, about small nutrition gaps that creep in with age, and sometimes about the way the heart, liver, or lungs quietly influence how nails grow, would that change how you look at them? Most of us learn to shrug and file a little more, to paint over the cracks, to blame a season's cold or a brand of soap. But your nails are slow storytellers. They grow in millimeters, not minutes. They carry a record of the last few months of your life, written in pale half-moons and ridges, in edges that fray or ends that hold. When you learn to read that record, shame loosens and a kinder plan appears. Start with what a nail truly is. It isn't a hard shell you stick on the end of a finger. It is living protein keratin stacked into layers like shingles on a roof. Those layers want balance. Enough water to stay flexible, enough oil to keep the water from racing out, enough building blocks from food to knit new cells together as they rise from the root under the cuticle. Age shifts that balance. We wash hands more, use sanitizers, live in dry heated air in winter, and then in air conditioning all summer. Many of us take medicines that dry the skin and nails a little as a side effect. We trim closer because small chores are easier with short nails. And sometimes we trim too close, which invites tiny splits. One day you notice the edge of a nail looks feathery, or a corner peels like a page. You file it smooth and move on until the next one whispers the same thing. There's a second layer to the story, and it sits at the table with you each day. As we age, we often eat less, or we eat just enough to feel full without giving nails the building blocks they crave. Protein matters not because we're bodybuilders, but because nails are made of it. A little less than your body wants. Day after day shows up first in places that renew slowly. Hair that feels thinner, nails that split, skin that loses its easy glow. Iron, zinc, and certain B vitamins can drift low in older adults, especially if appetite is light, if chewing is uncomfortable, if digestion isn't what it used to be, or if we quietly skip the foods that once made meals complete. This isn't a test you pass or fail. It's a rhythm you can adjust. When you add a simple source of protein to breakfast, when lunch includes something more than crackers and coffee, when dinner is not only soft but also nourishing, the nail root quietly takes note. 3 months later, the edge you're trimming reflects the change you made today. Nails are patient. They ask us to be, too. And because whole bodies write on nails, we owe a gentle word to the deeper systems that sometimes speak through them. The liver, which processes so much of what we drink, swallow, and absorb, can soften nails when it struggles. The heart and lungs, which move oxygen through every cell, can leave nails more pale or slightly clubbed when they've been under strain for a longer time. That doesn't mean every brittle nail hints at a hidden disease. It means that noticing nail changes invites you to check in on the rest of you. Energy, breath, color, swelling at the ankles, any new fatigue that doesn't match your days. You don't need to diagnose yourself. You need to pay attention and be willing to ask. Let me draw you into a small, ordinary scene, because knowledge takes root where we actually live. You're in the living room in a favorite chair. The afternoon news murmuring from the TV. A grandchild's drawing rests on the side table, and beside it, your emery board, the one you keep because these days there's always something to smooth. You pick it up and catch your thumb's nail splitting again, a tiny ladder of layers. Old advice whispers, "It's just winter," or "I guess this is age." Newer, kinder wisdom says, "This nail is a slow reporter from the past few months. It is telling me I've washed and sanitized more than I've replaced the moisture, that my breakfast has grown small, that my day sometimes runs on coffee and kindness instead of food." None of this is a scolding. It's information you can use. You might be wondering about supplements because it's hard to walk an aisle without someone promising strong nails in a bottle. There's a calm way to hold that question. Nails need building blocks, yes, and many people do well just by feeding those blocks in food they enjoy and will repeat. Eggs, yogurt, beans, fish, chicken, tofu, nuts, whole grains, ordinary, friendly foods carry protein and micronutrients that nails respect. If you and your clinician discover a true shortfall, a supplement can bridge it. What helps more than any label is consistency you'll actually keep. A single perfect day won't show up at your fingertips. 7 decent ones will. The most tender part of this topic isn't in the science. It's in the feeling that brittle nails are somehow a personal failing, a sign of not trying hard enough to look presentable. That word has followed many of us for years. Please, set it down for a while. The hands you carry through the world have folded shirts and letters and grandchildren's paper birds. They've steadied you on stairs, opened jars, stirred soup, written checks, planted seedlings. They deserve care that isn't punishment. When you trade harsh removers and constant scrubbing for gentler washing and a small habit of sealing moisture back in, you're not pampering yourself, you're repairing a barrier that has worked overtime. When you trim straight across and leave a little free edge instead of chasing an invisible line, you're not lowering a standard, you're honoring the way nails grow. There are a few red flags worth having in your pocket, not to scare you, but to keep you safe while we settle into steadier habits. If a nail shows a new dark streak you didn't paint on, especially if it widens or the skin beside it changes, if a nail lifts away from its bed without injury and there's redness or drainage, if the skin around the nail is hot, swollen, and very tender, if several nails suddenly become spoon-shaped, very pale, or deeply clubbed, if brittle nails arrive alongside new breathlessness, yellowing eyes, swelling in the legs, chest pain, or unexplained weight loss, those are times to be seen. Most is a comforting word in health, but it's not a shield against everything. You deserve the peace of mind that comes from a trained eye when something doesn't fit the ordinary picture. I want to give you something to do today that you can feel before you sleep. Before you wash dishes or take a shower, notice your nails. Then, after, notice them again. The moment water leaves the surface, it begins to evaporate from the layers, taking flexibility with it, unless you trap it in. A small, simple habit changes that. After washing, pat dry and smooth a plain, unscented moisturizer or a tiny bit of petroleum jelly over nails and cuticles. Not a dollop, just enough to shine. Think of it as returning the roof shingles to lie flat after the rain. Do it in the morning after you wash your hands. Do it at night as you turn out the light. Small, quiet, repeated. Your nails will not throw a parade in 2 days. In 2 weeks, they'll split less. In 2 months, the part you're trimming will be stronger than the part you started with. Nails keep time in seasons. Let them teach you patience. Now, because EverWell always ties knowledge to a life we actually live, let's anchor today's lesson to a table you already set. Breakfast. If yours has shrunken into a cup of coffee and a cracker, your nails have been living on leftovers. A gentler breakfast does not require a new cookbook. A yogurt with a spoon of nuts or seeds. A scrambled egg and a slice of toast. Half a peanut butter sandwich if that's what you like. The goal is not perfect. The goal is repeatable. Each small, steady breakfast paints a stronger line at the nail root. You won't see it at the tip yet. Trust that it is there, growing. You may be asking, where do the heart, liver, and lungs come back into this? Quietly. The heart's job is movement, getting oxygen and nutrients to every slow-growing corner. The liver's job is processing, building, and balancing proteins, vitamins, fats. The lung's job is keeping oxygen plentiful so cells can work. When any of these are under strain for a long time, nails sometimes reflect it, more pale than usual, a shape that curves more than before, a texture that loses its quiet shine. This is why we hold brittle nails as an invitation, not a verdict. It's wise to ask if you've been more short of breath, if your ankles have been swollen, if you've been more tired than your days explain, if your appetite has changed. You are not trying to scare yourself. You are giving yourself a reason to check in, to ask for labs or a conversation, to bring your observations to someone whose job is to see patterns you don't have to hold alone. There is a kind of loneliness in noticing small changes day after day. You file, you moisturize, you promise you'll eat better, and then life takes the path it always takes, and the emery board lands back on the table by week's end. I want to offer you something kinder than a promise, a cue. Tie one action to another you already do without thinking. If you make tea every evening, let the kettle be your reminder to smooth a tiny bit of moisture into nails and cuticles. If you brush your teeth twice a day, let the toothbrush remind you to put a small, protein-bearing food within reach for breakfast. If you keep a pill box, slip a small card beneath it to jot one line each night. More splitting today, less snagging. Added yogurt, walked, tired. You are not keeping a diary. You are leaving footprints for your future self to follow when a tired day makes the path hard to see. Let's step into a quiet story, because stories stay with us when lists do not. A viewer wrote to say that she had stopped wearing her wedding band because it caught on her thumbnail ridge each time she turned the catch on the door. She felt embarrassed by how much it bothered her. "It's just a nail," she wrote, as if that were a small thing. "We talked about rhythms, not products." She agreed to two things she could live with: a real breakfast yogurt with a handful of walnuts 5 mornings a week, and a tiny smear of moisturizer across nails and cuticles after she dried her hands, every evening at the kettle's sigh. She also promised to trim straight across and to leave the cuticles alone, to give the root its quiet roof. 2 months later, she sent a photo of her hand on the same door catch, band in place, no snag. "It's still just a nail," she wrote, "but I'm not thinking about it anymore." That is the victory. Not perfection, quiet. Before we pause, let's touch the question that opened our time together and place it somewhere gentle. Brittle, easy, breaking nails. What is my body missing? Often, it is missing moisture where you can give it back, and steady building blocks you can enjoy eating. Sometimes it is asking for a check-in on iron or B vitamins or thyroid. Occasionally, it is inviting you to look up and see if breath and energy and color have shifted in ways that deserve a clinician's eye. It is almost never asking for shame. It is almost always asking for steadiness. Tonight, I want you to create 2 small results you can feel. First, at the sink after washing, pat your hands dry and smooth a whisper of plain moisturizer over every nail and cuticle. Do it again before bed. Notice how quickly this tiny act fits into your day. Second, add 1 simple protein to tomorrow's breakfast, whatever you'll actually eat. Then, on a small card, write 1 line. "What my nails told me today." Don't grade yourself. Just listen and write. In a week, that card will tell you more truth than any advertisement. You came to the table under soft light, a nail catching on porcelain, wondering whether brittle nails are a small nuisance or a meaningful message. You leave this first chapter with a kinder lens, and a plan you can live. Moisture in, harshness down, steady building blocks on the plate, eyes open to the rest of you, fear turned into attention. That is how we protect not just nails, but dignity, the feeling that your hands still belong to you, steady and useful and present in the life you love. You and I left off with a kinder way to hear what brittle nails are saying, how age, washing, air, and small nutrition gaps quietly tip the balance in those thin keratin layers, and how the rest of your body sometimes writes its longer stories on the surface of your hands. Now let's turn that understanding into pattern reading you can trust, the kind that holds up on regular days when you cook, wash, sign papers, and carry groceries. This isn't a hunt for a miracle polish, It's a way to match what you see at the tips of your fingers with simple choices that the nail root can feel, choices you can repeat without turning your life into a project. Begin with rhythm, because nails keep time. What you do today walks forward with the nail as it grows. A split at the edge belongs to weeks behind you. Strength you build this morning won't appear at the tip for a while, but it begins immediately at the root. That is not discouraging news. It is permission to stop chasing quick fixes and to feed the future edge instead. When you moisturize after washing hands, when you trim straight across instead of nipping into corners, when you choose a breakfast that carries some protein and a lunch that isn't just coffee and a cracker, you are leaving small deposits in a savings account. The nail will cash out in a few months. The impatient part of you will want proof tomorrow. The wiser part will look for fewer snags in 2 weeks, cleaner edges in 6, and steadier tips in 12. Nails reward people who practice more than people who perform. Now listen for patterns, because patterns tell you where to nudge. If your nails peel in thin, papery layers, mostly after housework or dishwashing, that's a surface water story. Soak, swell, and speed dry that leaves shingles lifted. Your experiment is to shorten exposure and trap moisture. Keep water time reasonable. Pat dry instead of rubbing. And smooth a whisper of plain moisturizer over nails and cuticles as a last step. Lightweight cotton-lined gloves can turn a long sink session from a thief into a neutral chore. If, instead, brittle edges appear even when you've been careful with water, pay attention to what you're feeding the nail from the inside. A week of small but real protein shows up as fewer hangnails and less fray when you file. You don't need a new identity to pull this off. Add something you'll actually eat. Yogurt with a spoon of nuts, an egg, a small bowl of beans or lentil soup, a bit of chicken or fish or tofu, or a peanut butter half sandwich that makes you smile. The nail root does not grade your breakfast. It uses what you give it. Some changes point past habits to things a clinician should help you name. Nails that turn unusually pale. Edges that spoon upward. New ridging paired with fatigue. Breath that runs short on simple walks. Swelling at the ankles. Or bluish tint that wasn't there, those are signs to bring forward. So are nails that lift from the bed without injury. Lines that streak dark and widen, or several nails that thicken and crumble with tender skin around them. You are not leaping to conclusions by noticing. You are offering information that lets someone rule out iron shortages, thyroid slowdowns, and longer stories from the heart, liver, or lungs. You don't have to hold those possibilities alone. You only have to say what you see. On ordinary days, though, brittle nails are mostly asking for gentler handling and steadier fuel. That means learning to file like you are smoothing a page, not sawing a branch. Short strokes in a single direction, light pressure, stop before heat builds. It means trimming straight across and rounding just the corners so the edge is strong enough to resist the peel. It means resisting the urge to clean cuticles, because those tiny seals are your shingle's best friends. Push them brutally and the roof leaks. Leave them alone and the roof lies flat. It means noticing that some polishes and removers strip oil faster than you can return it, and that the no-polish break you give yourself for 3 weeks can buy your nails a season of calm. Food deserves a second quiet pass because your plate is the easiest place to be, both kind and consistent. Nails ask for building blocks, and most older adults wildly underestimate how little of those blocks show up in the day they actually live. A smaller appetite is common after 60. So is eating the same 3 safe things. You can respect that and still help the nail root. A spoonful of cottage cheese next to fruit, a small tuna salad, a bowl of chili with beans, a handful of almonds you keep near the place you already sit. These are humble moves. If chewing is hard, smooth the texture. Yogurt, soft eggs, silken tofu, a smoothie made gentle. If you live with a condition that asks you to limit or choose carefully, keep that promise and use what fits. The principle is simple. Feed the root something real, early, and often enough that your body stops scavenging from the edges. There's a quiet cousin to nutrition that matters more than people think. Absorption. If you've had a long dance with reflux and relied on acid-reducing medicines, if your bowel habits have changed and food moves faster than it used to, if you've lost weight without trying and nothing tastes right, the nail plate may be telling on that. Those are not reasons to panic. They are reasons to ask whether blood work and a conversation might be useful. Sometimes the fix is as modest as timing certain medicines differently, adjusting fiber and fluids, or adding the foods you tolerate best at the time of day you actually feel like eating. Because we are talking to the whole of you, not just the part that snags on a sweater. Let's fold in movement and breath. Better circulation means better delivery of everything nails need. A daily loop around your home or down the block carries oxygen and nutrients to the nail matrix, even if you can't feel a thing at the fingertip. Gentle handwork, opening and closing the fist without clenching, rolling the wrists, spreading the fingers wide and letting them float back brings fresh blood to the bed and keeps the tiny vessels honest. You don't have to count reps. Tie the practice to things you already do. 5 hand spreads while the tea steeps. 10 gentle fist rolls while the news opens. A slow walk after lunch so afternoon air and sunlight brush your skin. The nail root is a quiet neighbor. It hears when the street is alive. There is also the matter of seasons, which write their own notes on nails. Winter's dry, heated rooms pull water out of every layer. Summer's chlorine and long swims swell and lift those layers. If you pair a season with a counterbalance more sealing moisture in winter, briefer soaks, and a quick rinse and seal after summer pools, the nail plate rides the year without the same crackle. Air travel dries you inside and out. A small tube of plain moisturizer in a pocket, used after the restroom before you sit again, spares you 2 weeks of snagged edges. Gardening roughs up tips in an hour. Cotton. Lined gloves and a rinse and seal when you come inside preserve what the season tries to steal. These aren't rules. They're courtesies. If you've loved salon nails for years, there's a gentle conversation to have with yourself about trade-offs. Long stretches under gels or acrylics can leave the natural plate thinner and more prone to splitting once you take a break. It doesn't mean you can't have them. It means periods of recovery several weeks with short natural nails, consistent moisture, no harsh removers will let the plate thicken and lie flat again. If you keep color because it brings you joy, choose removers without strong acetone when you can, and give the plate a rest between changes. Joy counts. So does the roof you want to keep strong. There's a practical corner of this map called Tools. A good glass file glides where a rough emery board scrapes. A small bottle of plain, unscented moisturizer you actually like will be used. A fancy one you skip will not. A pair of clean, sharp clippers that cut without crushing is kinder than the old set at the back of the drawer. None of this requires a shopping trip today. It requires noticing whether what you use helps or harms and being willing, over time, to swap one unhelpful thing for one helpful one. I want to place you inside a scene because that's where habits stick. You're at the kitchen sink after dinner. Old choreography. Hot water blasting, hands in for 10 minutes, soap that leaves your palms squeaky, towel, then on to the next thing. New choreography. Warmer than lukewarm water. Less time under the stream. A softer soap, towel patting, and then without thinking one breath to smooth a whisper of moisture across nails and cuticles before you walk away. The whole addition takes less time than the thought, I should do better. You are not pampering yourself. You are closing the roof after rain. Another scene. A late morning when the house is yours and the light is kind. You make a small breakfast that includes something with protein. You sit with a list, pay a bill, then pause. You file a single rough edge with short, one-way strokes until the snag is gone, not until the tip is thin. You let your hands rest on your lap, palms down, and you notice they look like themselves again, lived in, useful, not perfect, and not expected to be. That ease is the point. Not nail art, not compliments, not proof to anyone, just hands you can forget about because they're not catching and fraying. People often ask how to measure progress when the mirror is subtle and the months are long. The measure that matters most is whether your nails spend less time asking for attention. Fewer catches on fabric. Fewer moments where a door latch yanks a corner. Less need to keep the emery board within reach. If you like numbers, circle a calendar date 2 months from now and write one line beneath it. Trim day, look at edges. Then live your days. On that date, look and decide whether the tips you're trimming are stronger than the tips you were trimming when we began. If yes, keep going. If not, bring your small card of one-line notes, more splitting this week. Breakfast steady. Lots of washing. Little sealing. Tired. To a clinician. And ask for help. You won't be asking from a place of worry, but from a place of partnership. And that changes everything. Because EverWell always asks for something you can feel tonight, give yourself 2 small results before bed. First, after your last hand wash of the evening, pat dry and seal nails and cuticles with a whisper of plain moisturizer. Notice, as you smooth it in, whether your breathing slows a notch just because you're treating the day's tools with respect. Second, place tomorrow's breakfast helper, whatever it is you'll actually eat, where morning, you can't miss it. A yogurt cup front and center, an egg in a small bowl on the middle shelf, a bag of nuts by the kettle. You are not aiming for perfection, you are aiming for done, done, repeated. Become strong. You began with a question that tugs at vanity and worry in equal measure. Brittle nails, what is my body missing? You now hold a kinder answer you can live. It's missing steadier moisture at the surface and steadier building blocks beneath. Sometimes it's asking for a check-in about iron, thyroid, or how your heart, liver, and lungs are carrying you. Most days, it's simply asking you to be consistent in small ways. When you are, the edges stop shouting and your hands return to the background of a life that deserves your attention far more than your nails do. By now, you've walked with me through the first truths about brittle nails, the way water, age, and habits dry, and split them, and through the second truths, the patterns that point toward nutrition, deeper health, and the simple acts of care that can rebuild strength. In this last part, we gather everything together. Because brittle nails are not just about the ends of your fingers. They are about how you live with your body's quiet signals. They are about listening without panic, acting without shame, and letting small, steady choices change what the future edge will be. Picture yourself on an ordinary morning, one where you don't have to leave the house. Sunlight spills across the table, and the air smells of toast. Months ago, you would have sighed when your thumbnail caught on a sweater or peeled as you opened a package. Now you notice something else. Your nails are smooth enough that they don't demand attention. You spread jam, hold your cup, butter the toast, and your hands simply do their work. That is not magic. That is patience in action, small repeated courtesies adding up to freedom. Freedom shows up in tiny ways others rarely see. It's the way you button your shirt without a snag. It's folding a grandchild's drawing and sliding it into an envelope without the paper tearing at a rough edge. It's cooking a stew and realizing your nails don't split with every long wash at the sink. It's saying yes to a church supper without worrying about how your hands will look passing plates. Confidence sneaks back into your day, not because your nails are flawless, but because they have stopped demanding constant repair. Confidence also shows up in conversations with your clinician. Instead of shrugging, "My nails just break," you can say, "Here's what I've noticed: more splitting when I wash a lot without sealing. Less fraying since I added protein at breakfast. Still some ridging that hasn't changed." That kind of simple record, offered without drama, turns you from a passive patient into a partner. It gives your clinician something to work with, and it keeps the power in your hands, literally and figuratively. And then there is dignity, the word that belongs at the heart of every EverWell story. Dignity is when your nails no longer embarrass you, no longer whisper that you are fragile or failing. Dignity is when you look at your hands and see, not weakness, but history. Meals cooked, gardens tended, letters written, faces touched. Dignity is when you realize that even if your nails never look like a magazine, they can be strong enough for the life you actually live. And that is enough. None of this requires perfection. It requires noticing, responding, repeating, noticing that water steals and sealing it back in, responding to splitting with gentler filing, not harsher scrubbing, repeating protein at breakfast and a moisturizer at night until it feels as natural as brushing your teeth. The body doesn't ask for miracles, it asks for consistency. And nails, being slow storytellers, reward those who keep showing up. So, here's where we land. Brittle nails are rarely a vanity issue. They are a body issue. A message written in keratin about moisture, building blocks, and sometimes deeper systems. They deserve your attention, not your shame. When you treat them with respect by protecting, feeding, and noticing, they repay you with ease. And ease is a gift. It lets you stop thinking about your hands so you can start using them again in the life you love. Tonight, before bed, give yourself one more chance to practice. Pat your hands dry after washing, smooth in a whisper of moisture across nails and cuticles, and place something nourishing where morning you can see it. Then close your day with a simple thought. These hands have carried me far, and I can carry them kindly too. That is the real answer to brittle nails. Not just stronger tips, but steadier days.